Welcome back to the Uncle Bob Crypto Podcast number 39. I'm here with Crypto Birb, the legendary trader on Twitter. He's been around for a while. I've known about him for quite a while. I'm sure you know him if you are on Twitter. A little bit about him. He's a certified technical analyst, CMT, Bitcoin and legacy markets expert. He's a chemical engineer, founder and CEO of The Birb Nest. Started that in 2017. He's the co-founder of @yellowblock_IO. He says in his bio, not financial advice. We all say that. And his website is www.theburbnest.com. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, I'm very happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Birb is also known as Adrian. He's allowing me to, otherwise known as Adrian. Adrian, what exactly is a certified technical analyst?
So CMT, I'm very happy that you actually just brought this point. CMT stands for like this. It's like the abbreviation that stands for Chartered Market Technician, and I'm personally not there yet when it comes to well, just the full designation, because this is a very complex just I would say journey to gain the overall designation, the final designation of CMT. And all the best, I'd say, well, analysts, technical analysts, and traders that would apply to be, in some form of like a position, a post for some investment banks, right, or any, I would say, well, overall individual needs. Then CMT program or IFTA program would be extremely valuable. And I personally, I've graduated, from the actual first out of 3 designations. There was supposed to be a second one within the exam, held on June 4th, like a month ago. But obviously, because of the virus, it was not. But yeah, overall, I find it extremely, first of all, intriguing to discover, the actual nature of the market movements, right, from the price movements, from the price changing.
That's interesting. So, I mean, I've never heard of this qualification before. It sounds like an interesting qualification for anyone out there that loves TA. Where did you study it, and where did you take the course?
Yeah, great question. I mean, there are a couple of ways of actually just studying that. Now, because of the nature of, well, this overall like a shitty pandemic all over, you will get most likely only the online like courses, right? But altogether, when you do have some already, I would say, applied knowledge, like in my very case, it was more of just getting the thick break book to get to familiarize myself with that in depth, because this is extremely, I would say, deep knowledge. And I was very well, happy, not lucky, but happy, with tons of efforts and tons of reading to get past through the final exam of the first stage. And it was the exam itself was stationary, because they wouldn't allow you to take it anywhere in home, right? It needs this designation. Needs you to be 100% like, I would say, compliant, right? And then follow all the steps, rules that they would give you in the examination centers all over the European world.
That's interesting. So let's go back to the beginning. What drew you to the crypto space? Was that the first space you came to, or was it the traditional markets?
Yeah, great question. Well, the history itself now started, back in my chemical technology master's of engineering, like the studies, that when it comes to crypto itself, I actually found out about crypto earlier than I got any sort of like actual active interest in trading. That's one, but also sooner than the legacy markets. And the reason is for me being, just part for a long time, for the entire time of my studies, being part of like this, gig groups of engineers, right? That it would be associated with a lot of IT specialists, with with a lot of like, just programmers and coders, right, and then blockchain like enthusiasts and all that. Back in 2014, it actually got, for me to hear about Bitcoin for the first time, because of this insane crash that happened with MTGOX, with this entire bubble initiated with the hack, right, with the exchange hack, in February 2014. And this was the time that Bitcoin, first of all, was extremely pumped, right? This was the first actual like big, drive for Bitcoin to get past, 1000K level. As far as I can remember, to top out around like 1250 or so. Then to just fall off the cliff, just all the way down to $150 because of the crash. And even on the MTGOX, I believe it was like $90 or something. So it was like roller coaster all the way from 10K from K plus 1000 plus all the way below to funny like $90. So it was completely worthless at that time when compared with the peaking stuff. And this was the reason, why it was so extremely vibrant and I would say big piece of interest, for any sort of like media headlines that you could read over the articles. So we were exchanging, with our friends with these articles. But then guess what? I would not really get any sort of like actual interest in that because, this was simply not anything. Crash of the market is anything that makes you buy when you're not really having any sort of like experience. When you do have experience, when you do grow experience, you watch the crashes even more cautiously because this is what kind of like gets you to think where to enter, right? When everybody's selling to get you the best entries. But all in all, 2014 is when it started, for me to actually discover Bitcoin, but more on the passive side than to truly activate, all my interest and start actively trading that back in early 2017. And at that moment of me joining the crypto was, I was happy enough and lucky enough to join at the first actual altcoin rallies that was, just happening all over in 2017. Yeah.
No, I joined at exactly the same time. Actually, for me, I would have been a late comer in 2017. I was August 2017, and I was in an Iraqi greengrocers on my street here in London, and I went to buy a stick of gum, and I noticed to the right of me there was an ATM, a Bitcoin ATM. I said, "What's that?" And he said, "Oh, that is a Bitcoin ATM." And I said, "What does it do?" And he said, "It makes you money."
That's hilarious, man.
And you know what I did was I started to track the price of Bitcoin. I said, he showed me his phone. It's gone up so much. I've made this much in the last month. And it kind of went up, and so began my journey. I wish I'd just kept my initial plan, which was to invest in Bitcoin a little bit every month. I would be rich man already by now. But okay, that's really interesting. So you started technical. Did you have? You're obviously a successful trader now. Did you have a kind of knack already for TA? Did it come to you easy, or was it something you really had to work hard for?
Yeah. So first of all, it all comes with time. When it comes to the finance and the actual, my second master's that I just recently did was on the top school of economics. Within the project management, but still finance related thesis with like super, professor, one of the top professors for finance industry in Poland. And my TA, despite, just being in the PM, like project management department, would be about Bitcoin technical analysis, which is also like extremely controversial because first of all, the TA itself is controversial itself, right? Because as many believers there are that it works, there are so many, I would say contra believers, right? They would not really believe you. They would actually just tell you it doesn't work because the prices of assets are completely, the actual movements of prices of assets are completely random, which they are not. For me, as a technical analyst, I would say are completely not random. They are all combined and connected, and occur with trends and happen with trends. And this is like the actual visible and factual confirmation that there is no There is a very limited, just randomness, I believe, to lower timeframes. That only makes the price movements random, but the overall bigger movements are always some form of trends, right? And this comes within the fundamental values, within the intrinsic values of an equity, of a share for a stock company, or any other sort of asset that we would trade.
You talk about fundamental analysis. Is it possible to fundamentally analyze crypto projects yet in the same way you would do with traditional markets?
Mm-hmm. Well, to an extent, right? Only to an extent. And there are a couple of actually like KPMG, like audited, or EY audited, just to some extent companies, I would say, listed on cryptos, like Ion, right? AION, would do that. I'm quite sure they would do that, in the past. I'm not 100% sure and convinced they are doing that still, right? They might have been simply some reasons for them to do that, but one way or another, it's not, I would say, popular for crypto companies to get through the entire process of the transparency, right? Of the transparency of documentations of financial statements that it would appear in every quarter, every month, perhaps, within some companies, or every year. That actually provide investors with real data on the cash flow, for example, right? So there are multiple ways you could use and analyze the company within the fundamental valuation, because one thing is the intrinsic value that I said that needs to be there simply within the human capital around the company gathered, that all of them kind of just create the value of the company that brings the actual this meat value to the company. But then you have the numbers and figures, derived from the quarterly statements or whatever, that are often the source of data and information of allegedly, just approved, SEC approved, information that is derived, just kind of delivered to the exchanges. And then you can just simply go and watch indicators like price to earnings, or price to book value, right? Or price to sales. And based on that, when the company, for example, is not, I would say, for example, making any sort of earnings, just the way it was with Tesla, on the peak of 2020, February, right? Or March, right? Just before the dump. The Tesla was, I believe, just peaking around $960 or so, and it was making no earnings at all, right? So such divergence, such logical and economic divergence, definitely brings a very reliable signal for you to get the fuck out of the position, right? Sooner than later, because otherwise you're going to be a backholder.
Little side note: do you notice your technical analysis skills working in the real world as well? I mean, I was just thinking there was a clear divergence in my last relationship.
Oh yeah,
it was okay on the outside, but there was clear divergences happening. That there were certain indicators that
I know, right? It all comes down, to similar conclusion. That's super interesting.
Okay, so let's get real into the meat. You're famous for TA. I actually want to ask you one last question before we go into looking at some coins.
Mm-hmm.
Number one, what makes a good trader? And can you train? Does it take a certain type of person to become a good trader? Are they kind of born? Can they be made? Yeah, I guess that's the, yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's fine. I think that's one of the most important questions, actually, that any sort of trader would need to be asked at the very beginning. And answer it quite straightforward. I would say, no, you're not getting born with that. Right? You're not getting born with that. This is something of competence, right? This is a mix of knowledge, skills, and experience that you get over the time. To name it competence, that would simply let you become a good trader, right? So you can become a good trader only with all these three, I would say, features to make it a full competence. But all in all, it needs, I would say, just as any other profession, right? It needs a good sort of and good portion of knowledge to start with, right? And the knowledge, well, surprise, guess what? You're getting that from books, right? And from books and from the people. So I think one of the most common mistakes that you could see people make is, well, starting trading from the practice rather than from the theory, right? So, and playing very often with real money while having completely no fucking, just knowledge on that. This makes it the dumbest decision one can make, because this is playing with fire. I mean, there's sort of like this phenomenon that you would simply call like this first timer luck or whatever, that it's simply all of a sudden, for some reason, you join the market, right? And you put in the money, and it just kind of like rolls a bit, perhaps like, give it 1-2 days. And all of a sudden it just kind of like doubles, right? It doubles. And all of a sudden you're like, oh, Jesus, I'm so fucking good at that, right? It's so easy. It's so easy. It's so extremely easy. Why don't I just put all my entire life savings in that, right? If it's so easy to make so much money. And,
You're telling
that's
my
what
story,
actually,
by the way.
mate, I'm quite sure I'm quite sure I'm telling just
And many
story of many
others.
people over the world. Yeah. It's crazy, but this is how it is, man. So I've always been a big fan, just of starting with the theory at the very beginning, right? And this knowledge and well, this experience and the skills that you're actually that you need to keep growing, because as a human, not only as a trader, but as a human, right? To understand the work better, all together when combined, I think they can make you a good trader.
All right. What word, if you were looking at the perfect trader to come and work for you, for your company, give me a word, an adjective to describe the number one adjective that you're looking for in a top trader.
Patient. Yeah, they need to be fucking patient, right? I'll tell you that. I believe there is this so-called marshmallow test, but not the one that you're actually just doing, on some like project management classes or whatever. But this kind of like a variation of that that Warren Buffett would actually just apply, because if there were any sort of like well, people to come to him for help, he would perform such a marshmallow test. And this marshmallow test, I mean, sort of like a marshmallow test, because the actual marshmallow test is something that you could perform over like children, I guess. You put them in the room, right? And you put like one marshmallow on the table and tell them that, listen, you can eat one marshmallow right now, or just wait 60 minutes and you get two, right? And based on that, or on, just some form of like analogical, like, well, trial, from Warren Buffett, perhaps put in more practice in real life for the financial world, he would perform such tests to find out who actually gets this so-called delayed gratification skill, because this is a skill. You can actually just learn that. And this delayed gratification comes with patience, right? And this patience makes you actually win double when you wait very often, right? And that's why I like kind of like stick to the patience. And I think realizing, just why you're here and performing, and actually just getting closer, but realizing the strategy while having the long-term like a view is something extremely important, and makes you realize that the patience actually will always win for the long-term run.
Patience. So it's kind of really discipline. Last question, because I'm asking this more for myself than for the people back home. What's the difference between a gambler and a trader?
Okay. So
can a gambler reform himself to become a trader?
Yeah, of course. So, I think just trying not to kind of like, sell all in that, everything I know in one sentence, because, there's so much I want to tell you. But what I think is crucial and essential is to know the definition of a trader. I'm a big fan of knowing definitions, and I don't mean like fucking learning by heart, right? Just to be able to tell it at any hour at night. All I mean is you need to be able to kind of like form and create a definition based on some logical, I would say, steps, right, out of the thin air, and just using the simple logic. A trader, who is a trader, right? Majority of people would tell you, well, you know, they make money, or what is it trading, right? They would tell you like, I don't know, like they make money, they switch, flip, whatever, right? But actually, the trade, right? The trader is somebody who makes a trade, right? A trader is somebody who makes a trade, and it's nothing more, nothing less to that. And in fact, I can see many people, differentiating and distinguishing kind of like, trading to be classified as more of short-term perspective and investor to be of long-term perspective. Well, I personally don't really see that as important to distinguish that, because an investor is a trader to me, and the trader is investor about more of a short-term wise, right? So I think it's all kind of like more of a synonym that can be used somewhat somewhat interchangeably, rather than two completely different words. But all in all, a trader, again, this can be done more, let's say, like a hobby, right? Like some kind of like like some activity that you would do, and at the same time, it can be done as a professional, as a profession simply, right? You do have some investment banks, you do have actual professional traders, um, and there is a misconcept that I would say, like a stereotype that is extremely popular and common, because whenever you say you're a trader, people would expect you to sit, in a basement for 24 hours a day, staring and being glued, to 1 minute charts and trading like 50x leverage every single day in, day out. And but take that and go to Warren Buffett and tell him he's not a trader, right? So it wouldn't work like that. So I think the great misconception also, and hence so many mistakes come from the people, because they would live off the assumptions they would hear on the TV. Because on the TV, you would see the commercial that is, like a guy just being glued in front of 10 fucking monitors and screens, right? Just stressing out left and right every single day and every single night. Just looking over some numbers, and that's not how it is, right? The trade itself, when you think about it, is only actual transaction time, right? You make a trade when you shake hands with a transactor, with the second, just party to the transaction, right? But anything else should be backed by some, solid analysis, right? The trade itself is just like this cherry on the piece of the cake, right? The trade is just the execution, and it takes as much as pushing the button for the buy or sell take, right? So altogether, I think, the gambler is somebody who, per the nature of, I would say, like game theory, for more of perhaps like institutional economics or whatever, it would be somebody who would take any sort of trades, no matter the risks, that they would take the trades because they're likely adrenaline would dictate them to do. But this is somebody who doesn't really calculate any sort of like risks, right? So they go and trade, they do, just these gambling activities, like in a casino, whatever, no matter the risks, no matter what it takes, they just do that. And this is a gambler. And the gambler, by actual, just gaining the competence of trader, right? Which is, as I keep repeating, the mix of skills, of the knowledge and of the experience. When you combine and grab, just focus on all three of them, then you can actually put in effect the discipline that would make you become a trader.
Interesting. That's really interesting. And it's interesting that you talk about the misperception of the trader is this guy. Yeah, he's looking at screens. He's living life fast. He's got a Lambo. He's getting all the girls. He's drinking and doing coke.
Yeah.
But in actual fact, I'm speaking to you. I've spoken to Cantor and Clark. I've spoken to Korush, I've met him. I've met all of the top
Awesome.
crypto.
Great guys. Great guys.
Yeah, but all with a they're all quite similar in some ways. Risk. They're not risk takers in the sense they know how to kind of, they have a risk, but they're looking for it to be in their favor in some ways. They're quite conservative. They're not these, I think the sign of a gambler is somebody who is living fast, trying to die young. What am I trying to say? It's the opposite. And I even see it, the word trade, like I'll be honest, my day job is in the construction sector. We call it a trade. I trade my time for money.
Exactly.
Nearly everything is a transaction of some kind, a trade.
Exactly. That's the point, man. That's the point.
So,
and I tell you what, on top of that, every transaction that you make, every trade that you make, every financial decision that you make, investment decision, would come with any sort of like ROE or ROI, right? And that's why it's so extremely important, because, well, it may happen that your daily job, your like a construction, just industry profession, would make you better ROI than any sort of trades that you would take by being glued into the fucking charts. And again, which one is wiser to go with, right? This is what makes you a good trader, to analyze what provides you with a better ROE, and it does not necessarily need to be, well, being glued into the charts.
Absolutely. Speaking of charts, we got to get you. I've written down a few ideas because I've been reading your tweets. You were talking about Litecoin, that it's primed to explode. XTZ at the moment, and it's kind of mirroring Link. We're looking at the 10.5k or 8.1. Where are we going with that? I'm going to hand it over to you now, because this is your part of the show.
That's fine. Let me just launch the screen sharing. Right, it should be all launched.
Cool.
Yeah, so to kind of like kick off with Litecoin, I cannot recall what time frame I did put on the chart over here. I think it's weekly. Okay, so all in all, I think on the weekly chart, what I was trying to show is this great potential setup that you could get for the Litecoin long term, and for a couple of reasons, right? And technically speaking, because myself, I'm more of a technical guy, I would focus mainly on the price movements, and again, different timeframes for that. But here, having the long-term time frame, I would mainly see a couple of things. And these couple of things are, to start with, divergences. These divergences come with, first of all, this tiny one. I mean, if you actually just zoom it in enough, you're going to see a sequence of high and a lower high. Low and a lower low, right? Over here, I'm talking about this one and this one. So these are, descending like a, series, whatever. That the fact that this makes it potential like a double bottom for the classical like a chart pattern, right? Reversal. That's another story. But all I mean in here is you do have like this declining lows, the lower low, the low and the lower low, while having beneath the low and the higher low on the oscillator, right? And this technically, is something that we call a bullish divergence. Okay, and when it happens on the larger time frame, which is the weekly for sure, it gains on the importance. So it's more important to see and spot such a divergence, and it's more meaningful when it happens on the longer time frame, on a greater time frame like weekly, rather than hourly or 15-minute. Okay, so this is going to bring more likely way bigger, way greater, I would say, results and effects to that. And on top of that, this is not the only divergence that you could see. The actual divergence started in September 2019, if you think about it, because there is a sequence of low and the higher lows, right? Now, on the oscillator, which is the Birb indicator, it's free on the trading, it's free on TradingView. Just whoever feels like go and type in Birb indicator in the indicators, just use it, enjoy. But this
What's it a
comes
combination
with,
of, just out of interest? Is it?
Sure.
You don't need to tell me if it's a secret, by the
No,
way.
no, 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 no. No, it's open. Don't worry. Uh, this is a combination. I'm a mid-time frame momentum trader, right? So I would analyze the charts within the momentum principles. So I would like to see when the price actually just gains the strength, the trend gains the strength, and saves the impetum, the momentum, right, the steam. And when it kind of like just slows down, just an example, right? When you see some kind of like a any sort of like a trend starts with sideways, right?
Mm-hmm.
Let's say this happened after the downtrend, right? So we do have an accumulation phase of a trend, right? And then just more often than not, with any sort of like a whale movement, like a whale impulse, okay, with a big candle, it would break out of this accumulation later to some kind of like a throwback and retest, but it's another story. But then it actually just expands, right? And it expands and it gains on the power, and it gains on the power until it actually just loses the steam, and because of some distribution going on, right? Because if everybody is buying, and if grandma, if a grandma is buying and their goldfish is buying and their gold is buying, like golden good boy golden retriever is buying, okay, then it's good fucking time to sell, because this is
So true. It's so true.
yeah, it is if you think about it. And the
Retailer
moment
in.
you was that
Retail have
oh
arrived.
yeah,
It's time to
exactly,
sell.
the street, yeah. And when
Dumb money.
people who never interacted with crypto, with any other like assets, uh, get interested in trading, that's because of they hear that in media, okay? And these are like more often than not, well, still with respect, the average Joe, okay? And every average Joe would not have any sort of like financial knowledge that would allow him to be a successful trader. Instead, what they become uh, is they become the liquidity providers, okay? And they become the liquidity providers to be dumped on uh, from the position of highly, I would say, funded, just funds or institutions or whales. Because this is how it is, trading is a zero-sum game, and for anybody to win, there must be a second party to lose that trade. Okay, there must be something right and wrong within the same piece of trade being taken. And so, all in all, this period of price expansion is something that I would put most attention to. Okay, because this is what gets the steam, this is what gets this entire wheel to turn, right? This is this momentum and impetum that drives the price, that drives the price trend, the directional movement, while until it meets some sort of like a cluster of resistances, like a direct push from the upside to the downside, with a bigger supply coming and just dropping their backs, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you do have the accumulation, you do have the expansion and the distribution period, which is often much more volatile, and I would say short-term oriented than lazy and no lack of interest, for lack of interest, just accumulation, right? And then the cycle just makes the downturn, right? There's a new phase to the cycle, which is the bear market, and the bear market does have the expansion, but to the downside, and it's finished by the accumulation, because everybody who, well, he couldn't trade, every retail trader that heard just about getting into the position because it's fucking too late, because it's grown so much that it just needs to keep growing, there's no way it keeps dropping, there's no way it drops. And guess what, that's where it drops, right? That's what the media tell you to buy. And media, as any other party, and they do have owners, and the larger the TV station is, the larger owner you are, the more contacts you do have, the more I would say rich contacts you have, and the more influensive contacts you do have, right? And the more Wall Street contacts you do have, right? So altogether, all of them pretty much very often make just TV stations to produce some specially crafted and prepared messages from from the request givers, that are very often some investment parties, investment like institutions, Wall Street people, and so on and so forth. People, people with the larger deal of information, right? Because what steers the entire game theory in here is the information asymmetry. The markets are not efficient for that. There are people who know more and those who know less, right? So altogether, this period of the market taking the greatest, I would say, meat, the trend, the participation of the retails, okay? This is what is of biggest interest to me as a momentum trader. But while having the momentum lets you observe the trend, there is a way also, like multiple ways and techniques to predict and anticipate on the bottom or on the top reversals, right? And one of these are the divergences, because the momentum kind of like starts pushing from the bottom up direction, right, to the bottom up direction. The price that keeps declining, but it keeps declining until it kind of like smoothens, right? And when it smoothens, when it starts going sideways, just the way it did over here, it means that the downside pressure actually, first of all, decelerated, right? Then this divergence is what shows this momentum, like periodically, every some regular like period, whatever, show you with less and less steam over the downtrend sell-off. And then when you add on top of that, when you actually just, let me quickly get rid of that drawings, but when
what's very, very quickly interesting about that as well, that you've identified a divergence. So Litecoin is trending down, people are selling, but there has been a divergence since August, in fact.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And that divergence, I mean, there obviously was a move to the upside at the beginning of maybe I think it was in March. Is that right, March? But it continued. It looks, would this mean that the end result of this is that the move to the upside is going to be quite violent or a lot stronger because it hasn't? I don't know what I'm trying to say here.
No, that's fine. I get it. I think to an extent, yes, because these, this momentum kind of like makes this entire setup like a spring, it kind of like gets squeezed, right? The price action just keeps declining while the momentum keeps pushing bottom up, right? So all in all, this kind of like, like you can imagine and picture that as a form of a spring, right? That when you squeeze the spring, I mean, it just, it's a matter of time until you release the, just as this, this pressure, right? It's going to actually just spring up. It's going to blow up, right? And so that's it. And the longer the divergence is, especially in the long term, right, the more important reversal it means.
Yeah. So
to me, there are very high chances. These are literally, unless entire market like shits, right? Itself shits its pants. I think this is a very high chances that this is a big bottom for Litecoin.
Right? I love that expression, by the way.
Yeah.
The market shits its pants.
Yeah, but that's true,
it's
man.
Perfect. It's beautiful. Yeah. Anyone out there who's shit their pants before knows exactly what we're talking about.
Yeah, correct. And then for all of these, I would say, like this divergence, classical divergence setup, where you have sequence of lower lows on the price action and higher lows on the oscillator, okay, which is classical setup as it is here, is what we call a regular bullish divergence, okay? Mm. And this is very often a huge indication that the trend reversal is about to happen. And then on top of that, you do have a bullish cross over the momentum. Bullish cross, which means that the indication, the momentum itself, if you think about it, not to getting too much into details because this would take up like 10 hours, but it would show you the overall averaged price of a certain period and correlate the current pricing with that. Okay, so if the and by such comparison, you are able to tell when we are short and just on more of the upside side of a trend, or downside side of a trend. But altogether, when you combine that with, as I said, like these bullish indications, bullish crossover, when the well, you're not going to see that because this is my own version of indicator that I kind of like worked on with Signal, like great guy, by the way, follow him on Twitter. He would, this indicator would show you like the flip to the orange, right? And flip to the orange in here is bullish. This represents the bullish cross. So you do have like triple bullish set. You do have a long-term divergence. You do have a short-term divergence, and you do have a bullish cross. And on top of that, what's typical for strong impulses to the upside, you do have, well, not sure you're going to easily see that, but you would see some shadows behind it, like this, right? I'm referring to these shadows.
Oh, right, yeah.
Right, and these shadows are EMA shadows, like EMA smoothing shadows put over the stochastics, but altogether this works as kind of like an additional filter for the momentum. So technically, along with this increasing TK momentum histogram, which is kind of like derived from Ichimoku that I used to be, well, I've been a big fan of for a long time. But instead of applying like regular Ichimoku to my charts, I actually decided to put that in the form of histogram for the essence of Ichimoku, which is Tenkan and Kijun, and we made them, mathematically speaking, we made them the oscillators, the momentum oscillators, and this is what the histogram is, right? So altogether, the trend is the strongest and has the strongest, I would say, bullish potential when there are two bullish orange setups following the same direction, right? So we do have upside bullish after, on double divergence with bullish crossover, supported by this same confirmation of directional, I would say, just of direction to the upside from different indicator, right? So this altogether, indicator-wise speaking, I think this brings enough evidence of the overall downtrend kind of like being very soon to expire. And the only thing we will need to see to validate the uptrend that would add strongly to the momentum is the break above this local resistance of the highs, right? This is what would confirm the overall like a just sideways accumulation, consolidation, no matter how we call that, double bottom, right, range. There are many names for that. While altogether, any chart pattern would still remain the same to be in form of consolidation, sideways movement. We could apply the measuring rule to that, which makes the traders, investors anticipate similar range or target equal to the actual width of the between the high and the low, right? So this would makes you anticipate of this around this level to kind of like get get perhaps some profits. And if you look at it, that's exactly where the market kind of like bounced, right? Discounting this, or actually just excluding this ugly week that happened on March 13th, right? That not invalidated the entire market, I would say. So altogether, this support, once broken, it turned into the resistance, and this resistance perfectly matches this measuring move of such a breakout, right? So short-term target would likely be focused around like 55s, right? 0.0050, 0.0055s. Then you do have the long-term moving averages, the simple averages, right? You do have the average of 50 weeks over here. 50-week price averaged for Litecoin is 0.006162. Okay. Then on top of that, you do have the M800, the 100-week average, the average price of 100 past weeks. Okay, that would make it around 0.0084. Okay, so these averages, long-term especially, work as resistances. So altogether, these are the reasons why I would expect Litecoin to reverse and to follow the upsides in the next months, unless, and this is one of the most legit setups I've seen, with very high chances of this being like a long-term bottom for Litecoin, technically speaking. And well, the only I would say um, well, condition is for the market, again, not to shit itself, right? Because this is, if there is a fundamental trigger like a fucking World War the Third or whatever, there is no way some shitty, just shitcoin on, I'm not talking to Litecoin about Litecoin, but there's no way crypto will not get hurt from that, right?
I know this is going to go out later than what I'm saying it, so this isn't obviously live, but Trump is going to be speaking at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I don't know if it's to print more money or he's got an announcement. It's a really important announcement. So that shitting of the bed could be that announcement, or that could be trigger time. Do you know what's
yeah,
go on. I interrupted you. Go ahead.
No, go on. I'm fine.
Do you know what else is interesting? Litecoin traditionally has been a lead indicator for Bitcoin. Not so much this year, but maybe this could, if this goes, it's kind of if you can see it now. This is an indication that Bitcoin could. What's your views for Bitcoin? What is it? The same thing? Are you bullish?
Well, let's hop into the chart. Let's just see some sort of like.
I like the way you actually do the longer term macro trading.
Okay, I appreciate it. I mean, I do prefer, long term perhaps to start. I mean, I do long term to start with, right? But then I tune into lower time frames to actually just see and spot from some good entries. But this is what is my tool and my edge to actually identify long term movements and reversals. Okay. And that's what I use to know where I need to pay more attention, where I need to scale in when everybody is just selling. So all in all, what we've seen for Bitcoin, I think on the daily chart, using the CME futures, which I think is more important to watch at certain times, because of the fact that this gives you the impression and the actual outlook for what institutional money does. Okay, because CME is, like Chicago Mercantile Exchange would be approved by ACC, and you would get the institutional money trading there because of their limitation is that any sort of like contract for futures and options or any sort of like derivatives will need to be for Bitcoin on the CME worth every single contract. The smallest unit you can get is 5 Bitcoins. Okay, so without 5 Bitcoins, you cannot even participate in trading there. So that is the reason why many exchanges, many actual like investment funds, like hedge funds, would go and trade there, right? By having the custody and the security approved by SEC and all that. So I like watching, just CME chart, for Bitcoin, right? Because this gives you what the market movers, the market makers in a way that the whales do. Okay, and what we can see is we've been, undoubtedly downtrending for a long time. Okay, until we broke out. Okay, and we broke out around 6th of May or so. And since then, after the sharp V-type reversal, obviously that provided what is like an intense buying opportunity on March 13th. Along with the entire legacy market, that's or legacy on commodity like gold, silver, all that was extremely underpriced. But we do have a strong sequence of highs and lows being in the ascending direction, right? That makes it a perfect uptrend. And then it stopped, right? And then it flipped to the sideways movement. And any sideways movement is a form of a range. Because if you think about it, as I said, if you think about it, be it, like a, I don't know, like downtrend, you do have like an inverse head and shoulders formation pattern, right? And any sort of like formation, technically, I would say would not. I mean, first of all, it's not uptrend or downtrend. It's just sideways movement, right? Something else, something different. So whenever it's impossible to say this is an uptrend or downtrend, 99% of time this is going to be a sideways trend or consolidation. And any form of consolidation, like head and shoulders or like a symmetrical triangle, right? Like a contracting consolidation or broadening consolidation of kind of like reverse to the symmetrical triangle that is like a megaphone or broadening triangle, whatever. This is all combined and comes with, with the actual size of it. And the size is, or the base, as we call that, is the difference, is the actual, distance between the high and the low of the greatest width, right? In the highest point. And this entire, I would say, range, the distance, like this territory, is a sideways territory, and price cannot really evolve and add to the momentum unless it breaks out either way. Okay, anything inside is still sideways because it didn't make new high, right, or new low. So altogether, I think, you know, the way I would interpret this chart overall is we've seen, we've recently, well, not necessarily recently, but we saw like a big, you know, just massive breakout, okay? Massive breakout over here. Then, well, some fuckery going on, right? Within multiple, like a sell-off sort of nowhere, and then like multiple traps, and which are, this is all very typical to sideways movement. But all you can see is that these sideways, I would say, well, deviations, they decrease over the time, right? Excluding this one. They decrease, the oscillations kind of like get quieter, right? Get more quiet to an extent. And this is what, again, this is this effect of this squeezed spring. Okay, it's a matter of time till it actually just springs up or down. But for me, the way I see that, we saw a breakout of the massive semi-bear market trend, which is this, okay? We saw a breakout to the upside, which is bullish. And now we are consolidating after the breakout, which is, again, bullish, more likely than not. And then you see this resistance of 10.5, or, you know, here in the CME, it's going to be 10.670 or whatever. But it's overall, I would say, like a region of 10.4, 10.56, okay, is going to be of crucial importance to be a long-term resistance. And on top of that, we do have an uptrend followed by a sideways trend that is a consolidation after the breakout of a bearish downtrend, a semi-bear market, and consolidating below the resistance. When it's consolidating below the resistance, it's more likely, more often than not, of reaccumulation, I would say, signal. And then you do have a hidden bullish divergence because of the sequence of lower lows and the higher lows on the price action. And that makes it, well, that makes this, I would say, the closer to this oversold area, the more, the greater buy it is. The closer to this one, to the overbought area, the worse buy it is, and the greater seller, like the position becomes, right? Mm-hmm. So all in all, this lets you reload and grab, you know, just gets you closer to this perfect buying opportunity, right? It lets you reload while it keeps climbing up, right? So this is what we call a hidden bullish divergence, and this is like you squeeze, you know, you squeeze the spring, you release it, then it jumps, it like pumps like crazy. Then you are kind of like letting the market breathe. Then you are squeezing, you know, as the time goes, you're squeezing the spring again, okay? And more likely than not, within this kind of like a reaccumulation, you know, it's more likely to, again, break out to the upside, to me, technically speaking, okay? And when you add on top of that, the monthly momentum analysis that made, well, the positive bullish crossover for the first time in a matter of a year, okay? This is a long-term indication that we're bullish, to me. And any sort of like short-term corrections, which may happen, we can, it's not, I'm not saying it's not possible for us to drop like to 8K, to 8,100, 8,200. There is even a CME gap on the 4-hour chart that's going to be around 7,600, okay? And gaps tend to get filled more often than not. So I could see us, for example, filling this gap in a matter of big sell-off, right? And fake out, actually, just to fill the gap and bring the liquidity for the whale longs, okay? Then later just bring us up and fold the entire
just wicking down almost.
Yeah,
back up.
Exactly. Yeah, it may happen. I'm not saying it's extremely, I will not count for that. If it happens, that's great buying opportunity, but it's not something I would expect just sort of just like that. For now, factually, we've been going sideways past 3 months, okay? And any sideways movement, as I said, this is limited by from the downside boundary from the range low and the range high from the upside, right? And anything inside makes it a price territory of this consolidation, right? And it will not truly add or reverse or break out, right? Until we make a new high over here. And when we make a new high over here and break this resistance, then everybody will be shorting that because, right? Then most likely this is going to squeeze shorts, make them close the overly leveraged positions, and hence accelerate the just the buying, and provide us with some sort of like an exponential rally, I guess. So easily there is like 11k 700, I guess, 11,700, something like that. There is like a CME gap as well that, again, gaps tend to get filled. So I could get us, just squeezing shorts strongly up to here, right? Then to slightly like cool off and perhaps provide us with some amazing buying opportunity also for the long term. We've confirmed and reversed all the higher time frames. But until then, we are in the consolidation and the price territory, and technically speaking, anything can happen in here, right? Lots of fuckeries, lots of like lots of traps. I'm not trading. I'm not a short-term trader. I'm not a day trader. So I don't give a fuck about that small movements. But I do care about this long-term consolidation that still reminds me more of a reaccumulation than the actual distributive nature of that.
It's interesting. I hear a little bit in the way you think. You have a kind of checklist, it seems. You're actually a teacher of this, aren't you? You've got your own educational resource, and you have your own trading. Is it a trading group?
Well, it's trading group to an extent. I hate to call that paid group, because this is not actually a paid group. I mean, from the very beginning, when you think about it, actually the Nest that I found in 2017 is the only actual brand that survived since then. The rest of similar, I would say, alike groups or some just some communities that try to look up, they either vanished throughout the bear market because they got fucking liquidated, or they kind of like ran out of funds, or they just got some fuck up over the Twitter, or like did some shady things, or simply exit scammed with stolen money, right? But from the very beginning, I was and I keep building a true empire. I keep building like a huge concierge company for retails and for businesses, and with all the like, I'm not afraid to call that like a big network that I've built throughout the years, big connections, big contacts. There is a huge potential for us becoming such a worldwide concierge blockchain company that would be and remain, and providing this B2B and B2C services for the education, for the investors, which we've been doing, likely as one of the most reputable communities around since for years. I mean, for 3 years already. But this combined with, for example, software house of blockchain, just tokenization or blockchain systems implementation for B2Bs, for businesses, right? Along with chain of cafes and restaurants, blockchain audits, like merchandise, like jazz clubs. I have so many fucking ideas how, that we are actually getting closer every single day, along with my 14 people team along my side. These are the most talented people I've really known for a long time, that have been, just extremely consistent and knowledgeable, and evidently, amazing to work with.
It's interesting because I remember you tweeting a while ago. I think when you had 7 people, was it 7? It might have been less, but it wasn't 14. Now there are 14 people working. This is amazing. Oh, yeah. This is there's some real growth there.
Yeah, there is a growth, and as I said, this is something serious, and I'm very often, just called bad names because of us, I would say, being classified within the same stereotype of being the scammer, right? Because 99% of people actually were fucking scammers. They actually stole money. They were actually terrible people, right? But the fact itself that we've been here for 3 years alone, while every other like community fucking disappeared or vanished. Well, I think this itself speaks enough but more than not, we've grown. I cannot really list all the features that we've implemented past 4 years because this would take another 10 hours. But uh, there's so much going on every single month. We've recently opened to B2B, again, industry and sector. We've partnered with amazing brands. We keep partnering with amazing brands. I keep developing my network. I keep, for example, working market reports for CoinDesk, right? Uh,
Wow,
I
that's
like
amazing.
last year. Yeah, thanks. Last year, I was extremely proud to stand on the stage as a keynote speaker for technical analysis under Charlie Shrem in Las Vegas, right?
Wow,
So it keeps going. It
it's
just keeps
amazing,
going
man.
because I want it to keep going, and
Yeah.
I'm actually just going to make it the next Amazon. And I'm a man of my word, and I can play against the fucking word, and thousands and millions of people standing against me. Well, but why would I fucking care?
Mm. No, I can see you're really professional. I can see it means a lot to you. I can see this is your
Oh, it
passion.
does.
This
Oh, it
is your
does. It
passion.
is. It is, man. It is.
Do you know what? We're probably gonna have to. I would. Do you know? I could have sat here all evening with you. Really, I could. Um, but we're gonna have to cut it there. Where can we find out? Where do we go to if you're watching this now? Where can we go to join your tribe?
Okay, sure. So actually, you can start with going to theburns.com, right? www.theburns.com. And we do have like multiple. I'm not going to show any sort of like product because everybody is, just can do it on their own. But such quick scroll through will let you see that we are here for real, right? We are here. We partner with amazing brands. We are here for real. The pricing itself is quite interesting. But if you go to start with our free resources, which I highly recommend before you get any sort of like a purchase, you go to the blog, for example, to read any sort of like my market reports, for example, right, that I upload and share with the community, like complete weekly reports. You would go to see and read like our risk management, for
Brilliant.
example, articles, right? On top of that, like there's so much of free content out there. You go to our free newsletter, theburns.com/newsletter, you sign up, right? And you get, actually it's coming out in 1 hour. So so it's interesting.
Wow.
Like what people love, I think, is like this fucking gold mine of free infographics
Do you
for
know what?
traders.
Your infographics are brilliant. They are
Oh
brilliant.
yeah,
They're so clear. They're the best
I
out
know.
there. I think they are the best infographs out there, bar none.
Oh, I appreciate it, and that's because I have amazing people to work with, right? That's because of the graphic designers and amazing traders and amazing technical analysts that would provide such amazing value. But that's what it is. Webinars, podcasts, just for me being lucky, to be on this very podcast. We do have our own podcast, the Nest Show, which have been quite successful so far as well. Uh, and then only then I highly suggest, can you go to actually just see into the subscriptions, or that actually just starts with 40, 49, or 35 bucks a month for when going with your early plan. But um, go with the free trial first. There's a free trial, and we don't charge a fucking penny, right? You go free trial, you like it, you stay and join our group. That's the longest since it's been since
To be honest,
2017.
those prices, and I'm not just saying this to blow smoke up your ass, they are really reasonable
Oh yeah, I
compared to
think I
other
think they are
prices out there.
reasonable. Yeah, I think they're reasonable. There is a cause only when there's for the rush people who want just signals, and they want just quick info for takeaway. Right? There is a trading community that is the core, and this is the product that I started with in 2017. Right? And there are still people. That's actually amazing. That there are still people who join on the first day. Right? So it speaks more than words as well. Now, and the private mentoring one-on-one guidance be with me or with the team, right? Uh, and as I
Um,
said, there are multiple like entire like just lists of benefits that members will get, right? For all kind of like sources. But again, I'm not here again to kind of like show my products. Anybody that is more willing to go to theburns.com is going to discover every single corner of that and decide whether this is a good fit for them, because we are not good fit for everybody. I mean,
do you know what?
not
I'll put a
everybody
link
is a
in the
good trader.
description. for sure.
Awesome.
And I'll put links out on.
I appreciate
you
it.
don't need the advertising really, but because you're you know, but I think you're definitely the most professional outfit I've seen so far.
I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Appreciate it a lot. That's very kind of you.
Okay, so I guess we're going to leave it there. Do you know what? I almost feel I'm a buyer already, and
I'm actually going. I'm going to get you some free subs. Don't worry. We'll just figure it out after the show. Don't worry.
Okay. Well, I'm appreciative that you came on. We got there finally last week. Yesterday, it finally happened today. Adrian, thanks for coming on today. I really enjoyed it every minute.
Yeah, I appreciate it a lot. This was a great show, and I enjoyed talking to you a lot, mate. Until the next one.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.